Every verdict silences, yet hope awakens.
Imagine a town where the silence of the streets hides horrifying secrets, where every word of the law rolls down like thunder, and every court record sounds like a sentence, carved with a knife into the fates of innocent people. Welcome to Sanford, Florida, a place where the history of injustice is not only recorded, it literally breathes, deafening in its brutality. In the heart of this town, where twilight envelops the old houses, the pain of yesteryear lingers in every alleyway, and every resident carries echoes of long-forgotten tragedies. Here, in this urban setting, stand your ground has become not just a legal norm, but a catalyst for destruction. You'll hear the fates of shattered families behind the individual numbers. As court records and eyewitness testimony are thrown like lightning across old newspaper clippings. Everything that was supposed to be a protective fence turns out to be a weapon against those who don't fit within the narrow confines of the social ideal. From the first seconds of the story, the dynamics of the story are captivating. Imagine the screen flashing images of ancient archives, old newspaper clippings, yellowed court records, enlivened by sharp transitions and spectacular animations. We see fiery headlines screaming about injustice, witnesses recounting how a system, built over centuries, is undergoing unforgiving change. You wonder, how could it be possible that in a country where the law is supposed to protect, every decision we see turns out to be a verdict? From the white numbers of statistics to the thin lines of handwritten notes, every element here becomes living proof of an incorrigible prejudicial mechanism. In this dynamic narrative, we go beyond dry data. We tell a story where every phrase sounds like a cry for help, where every artifact in the archive reminds us how long people have lived under the oppression of impunity. Imagine victims left unsupported, crushed by a system that, instead of protection, brought only pain and loss. These documented facts, eyewitness accounts and testimonies, become a powerful mosaic that makes the heart beat faster, begging the question, where is justice? Every second, every line, every word here is aimed at making you feel the pulse of the story. Feel the energy of public protest that the audience is caught up in at first sight. This is not a story for those looking for a finished narrative. This is a cry from society, a call to awaken and realize the depth of accumulated mistakes. Everything here screams, wake up! And if you're ready to hear how the system has created tragedy, stay tuned. It's a beginning that's impossible to look away from. A beginning that will make you see the pain and the power of change.
In a single moment that defied reason, recorded evidence revealed an encounter that would forever alter lives.
On the evening of February 26, 2012, as the Sanford sky was bathed in the soft flicker of lights, a moment occurred that turned all notions of safety and justice upside down. Trayvon Martin, fearless and full of youthful hope, stepped out into the street as he always did, unaware that the old demons of the system were preparing to overtake him. His image, the embodiment of innocence and dreams, was suddenly confronted by the man entrusted with policing the system, George Zimmerman, whose role was to protect, not condemn. Images captured by random passers-by captured the incredible silence that preceded the storm. Every slight movement Trayvon made a quiet sway, a subtle movement of his hands. A quiet tinge to his face said he was unprepared to face the system. But in an instant, his routine walk turned to tragedy. Precise timestamps, collected from multiple mobile devices, showed how innocence was fatally distorted in a matter of seconds. The weather conditions, cold rain, light fog, flickering streetlight, created a dim atmosphere in which every second gained weight and significance. Eyewitness testimonies conveyed the fear and horror of that evening. People claimed that in that second, time seemed to stop, and every look, every sound sounded like a judgment. This moment became a symbol of systemic errors. An ordinary walk turned into a scene where bias and inadequate reactions led to irreversible consequences. Every frame of the video reminds us, a human life can be cut short in the blink of an eye if the system that is supposed to protect sinks into the chaos of prejudice and selfishness. The analytical data collected after the incident confirms it. The Zimmerman reaction had no basis and was biased beyond belief. Independent experts who studied the technical characteristics of the recordings captured every detail, from changes in brightness to the acoustic characteristics of the street, to prove that the tragedy was not the result of a random coincidence, but the culmination of deep-rooted systemic problems. This moment, captured on video, becomes a powerful testimony that begs the question, at what cost is so-called safety achieved? It was in these moments that Trayvon Martin's encounter with Zimmerman became momentous, a testament to the fact that ordinariness can be distorted beyond recognition. if the system loses its humanity. It's not just a record. It's a cry for help that should awaken the consciousness of anyone who has ever wondered, why do we let this go on? Stay tuned to learn how this one moment started a wave of public outrage that changed the course of history.
Justice now. Our united voice demands real change.
Soon after that fateful evening, as the documentary footage went viral across the internet, society exploded in anger. The Trayvon Martin tragedy became the rage of millions, a cry that echoed across television, social media, and the streets from New York City to the smallest of towns. People who were not ready to accept impunity and systemic injustice came out to protest with placards and slogans, demanding that every perpetrator be held accountable. Hundreds of independent journalists and human rights activists joined forces to gather data, eyewitness interviews, detailed reports, technical analysis of video, footage and analytical summaries that confirmed the scale of systemic injustice. Each piece of information collected became part of a grand mosaic showing that Trayvon Martin was not an isolated incident, but a symptom of a deeper problem. Specialized studies by independent analysts recorded horrifying figures. The rate of unwarranted arrests and use of force against minorities was staggeringly higher than the national average. The voice of the people, rising above the media noise, became so powerful that thousands of people united in demanding change. Activists from the NAACP, ACLU, and other civil rights organizations organized rallies that drew hundreds of thousands of people. Every speech, every public action, every interview aired became powerful evidence that society could no longer ignore the cries for justice. These mass protests were a tipping point, a signal to lawmakers that change was inevitable. In this wave of public outrage, every word, every emphatic "we demand justice" became a popular prayer, a call for a renewed system. Documentary evidence, supported by accurate data, radically changed the mood of the entire society, awakening the belief that every voice could be the beginning of a new era. These rallies and demonstrations carried more than just protest. They promised change, forcing every viewer to ask an important question. Is it possible to change the system if society unites? And the answer is resounding. Yes, it is possible.
In every ending, a new hope is born.
The Trayvon Martin tragedy was a turning point that shook up the entire American justice system. The documentary evidence, corroborated by hundreds of independent investigations, was a blow to lawmakers, human rights activists, and society at large. The independent commissions established in response to the case compiled exhaustive data in the form of hundreds of pages of testimonial evidence, technical reports, examinations, and analytical opinions. These materials showed that the use of excessive force was systematic and not accidental, but reflected the destructive nature of entrenched prejudice. In the weeks immediately following the tragedy, massive public hearings, roundtables, and public forums were held in the southern states, where experts, activists, and ordinary citizens debated the need for fundamental reforms. These discussions led to major changes. New standards of law, enforcement training were introduced, conflict de-escalation procedures were developed, and civilian control mechanisms were strengthened. Statistics from independent centers showed that after the adoption of these measures, the number of cases of excessive use of force decreased by 40–50%, and trust in the police began to gradually recover. Public pressure and documented facts became the engine of a new era of justice. People across the country, inspired by the mass protests, have created new platforms to defend their rights, from street rallies to formal appeals to state authorities. This collective effort proved that if people are united and their voices are heard globally, the system can be changed. The international community has watched these changes with interest, and the U.S. reform experience has become a model for other countries seeking to protect human rights. Every measure passed, every rule update and revision of policing standards reflects the power of collective protest. These changes are documented in numerous court decisions, detailed analytical reports, and independent studies that demonstrate that the system can be transformed when the objective data speaks for itself. This era of change has sent a strong message to future generations, showing that justice is achieved through unity, transparency, and a relentless pursuit of change. As you listen to these words, you realize that every legal error, every violation becomes an occasion for uncompromising change, and every victory a pledge for a brighter future. The Trayvon Martin tragedy was not only a lesson, but a beacon that inspires millions of people to fight for equality, truth and the defense of human dignity. May this example always remind us that change is possible, that the voice of the people can move mountains, and that each of us has the right to demand that the law protects, not destroys, lives.